Okay, looks like we're live. Gotta square it up. Here we go. All right. You gotta square me up now. Gotta be even distribution. Okay, I'm happy with that. Well, hello, cousins, and welcome to the first episode of the Million Movie Project presents of 2024. So that's fun. Um, we we I didn't want to do one in December, so I didn't. I wanted a little bit of time off because I had a whole lot of things going on, and I was trying to have a little space before this year started. Um, but everything's kind of worked out in a good pace, and I've worked things back in, and I started the at the beginning of the month was the meanwhile back at the ranch, where I give my updates of what's going on with my projects, what I'm doing, what I'm up to, this, that, and the other. I like to update this a little bit that way, because you can always go back and watch previous episodes of that or Million Movie Project Presents, and Million Movie Project Presents tends to be more movie TV review oriented. So they're there in my live tab on my YouTube channel. So you can always go back and watch past episodes. But just the quick update is I was after I finished writing my book and got it published. This woo Another New World. I finally got that done and out of the way. So that was a big reason I wanted to take a little bit of time away from doing anything, because that had dominated my life for so many years. I just needed, a little bit of space, and in that time I was able to finally start doing some art again. I really haven't had the chance to do any real art for probably about a year, and I just put out a new painting. It is a donut. I painted a pink sprinkly donut, I should say. So that's out there now too. It's in my what do you call it? Redbubble shop. And my Redbubble shop is my name. It's Nicolette Abides, like the dude. So my stuff gets stolen a lot and resold. So if you're not buying from me, you are buying counterfeit. So if you want need to see what I've got, go to Redbubble and go to my channel, or my shop rather. Channel, shop, page, listings. There's so many social media, so much stuff going on all the time. I can't keep it straight anymore. Speaking of which, there was also I had intended, this is going to be my second review show of what shows I'm watching, because we know that I love television. I love long format storytelling. And I had intended for this to be kind of like a every 3 months type of a thing initially. But it didn't work out that way because, there was some time sensitive stuff going on. There was, the book. There were different things that I had to kind of dedicate the episodes to. And I just kept being like, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, I'll get to it. And then I kept not getting to it. So I forgot to look before I came to see when the actual first review was, but several months ago. So that's it. So I had hoped to get to it sooner, but it just didn't work out that way. So maybe going forward, I'll actually be able to fulfill that. But in that time, I have watched a lot of stuff and am watching a lot of stuff, and it hasn't all been good. So it's a good time to say that there will be spoilers. I won't try to spoil anything too bad, because, if I'm suggesting that somebody watch something, I don't want to ruin it for them necessarily. I would be pretty pissed about that. But just FYI, I will be talking about spoilers because these are reviews and that kind of a thing. I'll just try not to do it too much, overdo it. So that's where we're at with that. But in brief topical news, the book is now out. It's on Amazon. It is the follow-up to my documentary, which is here on my YouTube channel. You can watch for free. That's Oh Buster, Where Art Thou? Which is also doing really well. People are enjoying. And I'm really, really happy to be able to share it with fans, and I'm hearing really good feedback from new fans and old fans, but I really like hearing from new people that are new to Buster, and seeing him online, because his style and his doings really fit the brief internet interaction, brief video situation. So that's out. The book is now out. The book follows up the documentary. Everything I couldn't get into that documentary is in the book. And I'm getting good feedback about that too. People seem to be really enjoying it. It's got some reviews and and I've talked more about this in other episodes. So you can check back about that and hear what's going on with all of those things. I'm also kind of it is we this time. We resumed the words in order. We resumed our show on my co-host and I resumed our show on Revolutionary Blackout Network, the Long Beach channel, their secondary channel, earlier this month. So we're back doing that, and that is it's called Social Contract, and it is kind of we kind of think of it as like the intersection of silly and serious, where we talk about what's going on. It's independent journalism, and we we're not corporate for sure. So we get to talk about what we want to talk about the way we want to talk about it. So there's several of those episodes going back to November. We took a holiday break, but now we're back at it, and we're once a week, every week. Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, but again, just like every other YouTube, you can just go on the channel and check it out. And we just started this year, my co-host Jared and I. He's a really talented musician, and he made us up a theme song, and then I edited a video to it, so we got to do our first creative collab there, and it turned out really well. We're really happy with it. So we have got a new theme song, and we have gotten back with the start of the year, and there's a whole lot to talk about, a whole lot going on in the news, a whole lot going on in the world. And we go out of our way to try to make sure it's not like gloom and doom constantly. We don't just sit and regurgitate headlines, so we are always trying to look for solutions to things, or kind of what's really going on, and what the real root of problems actually are. So that's been going really well. We're having a great time, and I'm sliding down on my seat again. So you can check that out again on YouTube. It's also on Twitter. It broadcasts live on both. So you can check it out on both, on either one, whatever your preferred method is. So I've got about 1,000,001 shows that I want to talk about, and I actually kind of organized them in my notes this time, a la which streamer or which channel that they come from. And the list is huge because, again, I this is overdue, and I had meant to get to it sooner, but I just didn't manage to do it for a million different reasons. But so there might be a little bit of overlap. I did kind of look at the last time I did this, so I tried not to talk about stuff that I talked about before, but it still might happen. So, and also we just kind of, I think it's probably about wrapped up, but the television aspect of it, but the TV award season, like we haven't got to the Oscars or anything like that yet, but like TV award season is pretty much wrapped up. Kind of a obvious bunch of wins there, Succession at the end, and The Bear getting everything, and so not too not too many big surprises going on there or anything like that. So, but we'll get there. We'll get there about it. And then also, I think it bears mentioning that like some stuff, I don't watch everything. I'm not like that kind of reviewer that wants to like see every single thing. I really only watch stuff that I'm interested in. So yeah, there is some stuff that I don't get to, and there is some stuff I don't watch on purpose because I'm not interested. So that's why that they're not going to be here. But and some stuff I kind of hate watch. Where you're like, well, I've watched 2 seasons of it. I may as well watch this 3rd stupid season, see where it goes, and get mad about it. And there is stuff definitely on this list that was so intolerably bad, it was just like, I'm not going back to it. It's not happening. So, that being said, definitely the best quality and best collection of stuff that I have found comes from Apple TV. I got an extended, free trial of it to determine whether or not I was going to actually subscribe to it. And the answer is yes, because it's actually worth it. Unlike a lot of the other streamers, it mostly relies on original content. The other ones, they hook you and they're like, oh, we're going to give you all these new shows and all these new programs. Then they don't at all. They expect you to keep paying, and then they suggest like, oh, hey, we know you wanted some new stuff and you're paying us every month, but why don't you check out this entire series of Trapper John MD? And he's like, I don't give a shit. You know, stop. I like old TV, but like, I am not paying for this stupid shit. So a lot of the streamers, and I've also read some articles that say that they're trying to blame it on the strikes, but it's really not. It's because these greedy ass companies just want to try to stretch everything and pull every dime out of people that they possibly can get. And you know, it's really really stupid. And I even a lot of these you could probably just straight up unsubscribe to because they are bad. If you're spending money on certain things, like, just don't. But I will definitely say, you know, if we're gonna compare, you know, apples to apples here, Apple TV, I was not intended. Apple TV is definitely worth it. They've got a really high quality level of programming, and I had never paid any attention to it as a streamer or service, even when the shows would win awards, because I thought it was kind of a nichey thing. I was like, how much stuff could they really have there? So I really just kind of, you know, blew it off until I got, you know, that extended trial. And then I found out, wow, actually this stuff is really high quality and really good. Not everything is great that I've watched so far, but pretty much all of the stuff that I have is really good. And they've got a more or less, they have a kind of a lower cancellation rate, where, you know, the other ones are just like put on as something and they're like, oh, and then it's gone because they, you know, the algorithms didn't add up to what they intended them to be or whatever the crap. So they're not as fickle. It doesn't seem like they do cancel things, but they seem to be more singular minded about with the products that they are putting out. And you can see movies there. Killers of the Flower Moon is available there now, and I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to see it soon. But it's available there now. So they do have like some other outside stuff, but in terms of shows and documentaries and stuff, they really provide their own content. And I was so surprised that there was so much of it. And I'm starting to work my way through, and there's some stuff that I have absolutely loved and some stuff that I really enjoyed, and I just love the quality. I'm not super picky about genre. You're not gonna really get me to watch any kind of like rom-com stuff, like, or, you know, like teen stuff or anything like that. Like, that's not really in my wheelhouse. But like if it's like a drama or a thriller or sci-fi, love sci-fi, you know, like if it's stuff like that, like comedy, like I'm all for it. I'm fine with it. So I don't really have like any pickiness when it comes to like the main genre kind of things. And there have definitely been like a wide variety of content that I have really enjoyed. Like, certain things are so polar opposite from each other that I feel like I could sit there, and there have been there have been evenings where I just like spent the whole evening just watching shows. Just like, okay, watch a couple of these, watch a couple of these, watch a couple of these, watch a couple of these. And it's all, you know, stuff that's like way different from each other, super different energies, different vibes. And there's some stuff that I'm just now starting as far as that goes. So with that being said, Apple TV is certainly the best of all the streamers that I've tried or seen, and Netflix is the worst. They do rely on making a lot of their own content, but their content is garbage. You should really not pay for that, honestly. They have always, like, if you look at like the amount of content they have, it's shit basically, but a ton, but shit, and then what they've got like in total, like since the inception of the streaming service, they've probably had like 5 good shows ever, and they pay them out so slowly, as if people are really that fucking stupid. They're like, oh yeah, maybe 2 or 3 years from now we'll have another season of Stranger Things. Fuck you guys. You know, like, it's not even worth it at this point. So I'm not, like, I used to love Stranger Things. We've got this last season coming up. I'm really not even that into it. I mean, I want to see it because it's the end, and I really have enjoyed it, but at this point, it's just like, Netflix is such trash. Like, if you pay for it, don't pay for it. You know, so that's really where I come from. And also, Disney, with all their assets and money, they should be having, like, content, like, out the ears. Like, they should be having tons and tons, the Mickey ears. They should be having tons and tons and tons of content, and they don't. So that's a big disappointment and way too much for the money. So if you pay for that, maybe just pay for it in the Star Wars times or something. But okay, so I kind of organized it a little bit, but I'll probably jump back and forth because that's how Brian does it. And also there's some stuff that's in progress and some stuff that's ended. Some stuff, a couple things that have been canceled, that kind of thing. So let's get on with it. Okay, so in terms of Apple TV, When I thought I was going to, you know, for the extended trial. So I think, okay, I got to cram in as much as possible without really thinking that I was actually going to be interested in the service. But I was immediately, basically, and it is definitely worth it. So, two things that I have watched off, they were both miniseries, and that was The Crowded Room and Blackbird. And Blackbird was Ray Liotta's last project. There always seems to be like when someone's gonna die, they're like the last thing they film has stuff about like them being sick or dying or so. It's very odd. I've kind of noticed that over time. There's a pretty strong connection to that. I don't know, some sort of mental telepathy type of a thing going on. But Blackbird is based on a true story, and it is the story of a guy, kind of this sharp dressed man type of a dude who got popped for trafficking cocaine, and he thought he was going to get out of it, and because you know that was kind of the nature of his life, is he was used to getting out of stuff and used to paying his way and this kind of thing, and he was basically told he was going to get out of it, and then found out that actually no, they were going to sentence him to 10 years in prison. So he lost his shit, and he's like, I got to get out of here. But then came the opportunity to get close to a serial killer, and if he was able to get close to a serial killer, befriend him, and in this kind of thing, he in this other prison, this like madhouse type prison, they would commute his sentence. So that's the setup of the story, and it stars Taron Egerton. I think that's his name. He played Elton John, and he was in the couple of Kingsman movies. But and then the other guy, I can never remember his name, but he's in everything right now, and he just won. Was it an Emmy? Yeah, I think it was. He just won the Emmy for his role in this as the serial killer. I can never remember that guy's name, and so sorry about that. The information is easily obtainable, but for some reason I never can remember. Anyways, it's very unnerving because like if you're kind of skittish about like things that are like kind of like prison stuff's kind of jump scary, like what's gonna happen, it's gonna be gross, like we're gonna see some eye gouging and some bad behaviors and stuff. And it was pretty nasty in that way. There was some pretty tough stuff. I just don't look like because nowadays things are so realistic when it comes to like gore and violence and stuff, and they didn't necessarily go out of their way. It was realistic, and it was in context of the story, so you didn't feel like it was just like every stab it out of nowhere, but it was pretty gross. And it was unnerving, but that made it like super compelling. The story was really compelling. The acting was great. The story was great. Again, based on a true story where they just were trying to find the bodies of this serial killer. And because they kept saying that the killer, he's got kind of like, he's a little bit like mentally deficient in the way that he just really wants attention. So he'll confess to things he didn't do. But, everybody around him was pretty well convinced he did these things. So, Paul Walter Hauser. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's his name. He's really good. He's in a lot of different things. He's really good. Just won the Emmy. So, and it was pretty well deserved, as I saw it. But, anyway, point is, it was very nerve-wracking in a good way. It was a little icky if you're kind of scared of stuff like that. And very intense, very compelling. Ray Liotta's last thing, and you could tell he was kind of on death's door. He did not look well, even with like makeup and stuff like that, to look older maybe, or kind of more chewed up. Like he was a sad loss for sure. Always enjoyed his performances. So that one I highly recommend. It was really, really excellent. I won't tell you how it ends, but it was super, super cool because it was sort of like watching like maybe like the best like Dateline type of thing you've ever seen. Like you're really in on it. It was super, super good. I've seen a lot of stuff like that before, but this was a really good rendering of that type of a story. Now, The Crowded Room, that starred Tom Holland and Amanda Seyfried, and it was also a miniseries, and it's funny because it's got a kind of very elaborate opening that kind of goes with the theme of the show, and if you know what you're looking at, there's like a little clue in there about what's going on, but they don't, it comes on after the show begins. So from like literally the opening moment, I didn't know anything about it at all. no idea whatsoever. I really only turned it on because I thought it was going to be good, and Tom Holland was in it, and he's good quality. So that was it. That was the only reason I went for it. Wasn't even sure that it was a mini series till I got into it. But it's funny because there's a little clue in the theme. But when the show starts, it just goes straight into the show. So from the first moment it started, like I was like, oh, I know what's going on here. But then I wasn't sure that I was right because it was kind of a weird version of things. Jason Isaacs is in it too. For what it is, it's interesting, but it's also not like, don't go into it thinking it's scientifically correct. It's not. It's entertainment, and it says right in the credits, in the opening credits, that it's based on the life story of Billy Milligan. So I saw that later, like after I had from the beginning been like, no. Like it literally was the opening scene sat funny with me, and I kind of knew what was going on, and I didn't but then it turned out that I was right. But I didn't want to like jump all over it and be like, oh yeah, no, I figured this out, stupid. But no, I didn't love that it was a little too kind of artsy versus science, but not, it's like not, yes, as someone says, it's not accurate. It's not like scientifically or medically accurate, but it's entertaining. And it does say it's based on that story. So if you want which I already knew, I read and I was well acquainted with and have studied quite a lot, the circumstances of that and the issues therein. So, and then also, like, because it kind of gets you, like, if you know what's going on, like, you kind of question it. That's what I did. Like, I kind of questioned, like, if I was right or not, because there would be moments where I was like, yeah, that definitely, they did that on purpose to, because this is what's going on. So I won't spoil it, because if that gets spoiled, you kind of ruin the whole thing. But again, Tom Holland gave a great performance, and it gets even more going. He gets to do even more as it goes on, as it unfolds. And that was another really, really good one too. I'm not gonna bother with like star rating type things, like it's just it's good. It's good. It's really, really good. High quality, both of them. High quality, compelling, interesting. Good. Next, everybody's favorite, I think, and last couple of years when this was winning all the awards, I just thought it was like one of those things where everybody was voting for their friends, like, so I didn't really I was like, whatever. But is Ted Lasso the best show? It was so great. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I love that they got out before it got bad. I've been calling it umbrella storytelling since I've been doing this, where the shows get pitched or green lighted as being a whole. I don't really know if there's an actual term for that. That's just what I call it, where everything's under the umbrella. So it's like, not like, oh, we're just gonna see if we get another season, and that way you end up with these gigantic plot holes and characters that just fuck off and never come back, and pretty much everything you see in The Walking Dead and most series. But these other stories, and that's what makes Stranger Things good too. Like they know what they wanted to do with it, despite Netflix is like saying, oh yeah, we'll give you one every 5 years or whatever the crap. They're the ones ruining it. Except for right now, a lot of, if you find out what's going on with some of the cast members, won't get into it right now, but thumbs down on a couple of those cast members, for shame. But the umbrella storytelling idea is like, it really, really worked well for Ted Lasso, because you get in, you get out, you got a full story, it's going to last X amount of seasons, and really cool stuff. And I like the idea, because we don't get this very often, because people really want drama and car chases and fuck arounds and this and that and that kind of thing. So you don't really get stuff that's good just because it's good and nice and fun. And that's not to say there wasn't like dramatic moments or emotional moments. There are both. It just handled things so well. It was such like a life story. Like, you really bought into the idea that these, like, it's almost like these people are real people. Like, it's not filmed like a mockumentary or like a documentary style like Parks and Rec. It's not like that. But it is, it does have a very realistic feel to it by the way that the characters relate to each other and how they interconnect and the things that happen to them. But also has this sort of aura of like, this is how I wish things really were, because people really hear, even when they fuck up, like later, there's things that like people are at their best, like, you know, really really do great things. So when all these people were winning the awards and the show was winning awards, I was like, pfft, you know, I thought it was just people voting for their friends, but I was 100% worth the acclaim, and people talking about it. Absolutely great, really fantastic acting, and really fantastic writing. And they did a few things I think that were really super great. It was just sort of like people taking care of each other in a you know, because I couldn't give a shit about soccer, right? Like, I don't care, but it's not all about soccer. It doesn't make you sit there and be like soccer, soccer, soccer. There are moments of soccer, and usually within the story play, not just like, here, watch soccer. So I didn't feel like I was left out of that part, any of those parts. Like, it really worked into the story. And then everybody, you really kind of make a personal connection with, you know, the team members and their interconnection to each other, and the coaches and their interconnection, and the owners and their interconnection, and you really get to where you were emotionally connected to each and every person. And I really liked that. It was super great. And it was kind of people, and a lot of the times, struggling to be better and wanting to be better people, and then finding support in this group of people that allowed them to do that in one way or another, and how they all kind of interconnected in different and unusual ways. And I thought it had a really great last season, really great ending. I've heard a little bit of complaining about that, saying that it kind of abandoned its where it started off with, but I didn't see it that way. I thought it was very consistent, very enjoyable, very sweet, and, you know, very sweet indeed, you know. And it's nice to have something like that to mix in, just to make you feel good. And that's also funny, it's also dramatic. It's not just like, you know, like kid shit, like, oh, okay, everybody be nice and play nice and share your toys. I think there was a real standout moment where there, if you've seen it or you're going to see it, this has to do with some of the soccer players. The star soccer player who started off as a, you know, a real cunt, and he came around and learned you can't act like that, had this really embarrassing interchange with his dad, who came and got in a fight with him in front of his entire team, and really treated him very very badly. And they saw, you know, they got it, they got rid of the dad. Basically, they're like, okay, out you get. And then they literally put him out. And then this other character, who's very stoic and very not kumbaya, and, you know, very standoffish in that way, and really hated that other guy. And if you know the show, I'm talking about Jamie and Roy. But if you haven't seen it, that means nothing to you. But there was this really important moment where they were always at odds. They liked the same girl, so they always hated each other. And Roy was never about wanting to be friends or having a friendship with him. Really hated Jamie. But after everybody saw this, it was very horrible situation. Like, he just kind of like Roy just kind of runs up on Jamie and just grabs him in a hug and just holds on to him for a minute. And it was a very emotional moment. You kind of like guy stuff, right? Like, you know, like guy got man feelings type of thing, but like really healthfully, like portrayed in a really healthy way that I think really resonates with like a whole audience, not just a few people. So you've got kind of this manly man stuff going on, but at the same time, it's really, really evolved. And that's something that, you know, when you have sports and things like that, and there is dealings with people getting called slurs and things like that, and how they deal with it, and these more modern mindsets of, you know, these antiquated masculine archetypes are just completely gone, completely out the window. And they did do one other neat thing, which was almost kind of like a superhero type of a thing, because they have a conflict with one of their coaches, and who's going through his own stuff, and that's Nate. But as he starts to kind of turn villain in the story, his hair goes from black to gray to white very quickly, and it's like nobody explains it or talks about it. But if you've seen like a lot of, like, you know, like good versus evil type stuff, or like sci-fi stuff, that's such a like a supervillain trait. Like, their appearance changes, and it was kind of a strange thing to put in there, but it was also sort of a little bit of a sci-fi nod, so that was kind of fun too. All around excellent, excellent, excellent. So and that one's over too. Although all those things are over. The first two were miniseries. Ted Lasso is a series, but it ended after 3 seasons. Something in Progress that I also absolutely am loving, and really feel like really like connected to, really addicted to, is Mythic Quest. And I never really could connect to Always Sunny. Like, that really, for the reason that it's so popular, which is how it's been described, which is just like these assholes that never grow and never change and never learn anything. They just stay assholes. Like I always felt to me there was like no real good progression there, so I couldn't really connect with it. I'm glad that it's still on because I like things that can last the test of time. But there are funny moments. It's definitely got its moments, but I couldn't really connect with it in that way. But I love, 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 love Mythic Quest. And I'm in season 3. I'm not sure how much further it goes after that, but I hope it keeps going. I love the cast. I love the story. And this is kind of one of the first, because people tend to see this but not really realize it. This is sort of one of the leading, and Always Sunny this too, leading shows that is like for millennials by millennials. You may not realize that looking at it, but in the millennial, it took up to when millennials are now in their 30s and 40s to have media representation. Because if you look back over time, the millennial generation has been absolutely ignored by the media. There were very few like teen stars when we were teenagers. There are very few products aimed at us other than, like when we were children, like children's programs. And if you look at previous generations and post generation, there is a lot of representation. A lot of things have changed. And the boomer and the Gen X generation really controlled the narrative for a very, very long time. And they had very similar life experiences related to each other, similarly. But millennials were on this whole other page, of how we talk to each other. We're the first ones to kind of come around and realize there's no real future in life. So the gallows humor really comes out. We have we're not really bothered by language. We're very savage with each other when it comes to what would be considered wordy dirds and past times and things. There was an episode I just watched like last night, and Poppy just walked up to Ian and said something, and all he said to her was "shut the fuck up." Like that was it. Like it was even kind of biting. Like it wasn't even like funny. It wasn't said in a funny way. It wasn't aggressive. That's all he just said to her. Like he literally did not want to talk to her, and that's what he said to her. And I really love getting to finally see some representation of a generation of people that have been completely ignored up to this point, but are now getting the opportunity to voice what it's like to be us, because we are not boomers and Gen X, and we are not Gen Z. We are very, very different in who we are and what we are and how we relate to each other and what our humor is. It's very, very different. It's very insular. It's very us. So it's finally getting a chance to see. And then they don't exactly say like how old like literally everyone is, but they're very thorough about filling in the character gaps. So it's basically the spectrum of millennium, where Ian is like the older and Poppy is like the younger. And in their relationship is also very modern and very millennial in that way, where you're not watching it like it's like moonlighting or you're waiting for them to get together. It's not going to happen, but they still have this very emotionally codependent relationship where they're constantly at odds. But they still are desperate for each other's approval. Like they literally cannot live without each other's approval. And when they don't get it, they act like spoiled little assholes. And then they're mean to each other all the time. They're yelling at each other. They're constantly at odds. Yet that they are completely obsessed with each other and can't live without each other is really what it comes down to. And it's a very interesting dynamic. It's stuff that you do start to see more of now, as we get away from the old conventions of will they, won't they, that shit sucks. So we're over that kind of stuff. And that's not how, the millennials really tell stories. But we're now finally getting to see that kind of stuff. And it's very, very interesting because you get a really accurate portrayal of how, people in that age bracket talk to each other, what the humor is. It's very, very on point. And it's confusing because you're like, what the hell is anybody ever even doing? Unless you're really like, I'm not a video game person. I understand, basically what they're doing, but it's still, it's confusing to me because nobody ever seems to be doing anything of any importance, which I think is probably the point. And I like that it's not only about Ian and Poppy, but I also like that it mostly is, and you get their backstories, and that they're very thoroughly fleshed out, and that there's other things going on with people too, and other characters. And it's just this wide range of weirdos, and I really like that. And there's even stories that don't have anything to do with them. There was a story, an entire episode dedicated to how they ended up in the building that they're in, like the people that were there before them, So Very fun, very interesting, very out there, but like in a way that I can really relate to in a lot of ways. Like it feels like something made for me. So I enjoy it more in that way because, you know, you have to adapt to stuff that isn't made for you, whether it's older or younger, which there's tons of. But you know, it took all of these years. Like now, millennials are now in their 40s and 30s, and they're just now being able to take the reins on some of these projects and make projects for everybody that wants to watch it, but like made for by for kind of is the thing. And that's what I really, really like about it. I'm really invested in what's going on, and I can actually see it going on for a very, very long time. And what attracts me to it that is the exact opposite of what, like, I don't like about Always Sunny is like these people do evolve. They are still assholes and things change, but when they do something awful, they realize they've done it. They respond to things that have happened to them. They lash out from being hurt. There is emotional component to it. But Always Sunny always kind of just feels like it's the same joke over and over and over again. So this differs from that a lot, even though it's written by and created by Always Sunny people and starring. So there's that. So super, super into that. Really enjoying it. It's not over yet. I hope that it goes on for a really long time because I think that it could. I think they could just keep going with that, you know, whatever the formula for Always Sunny is, and then they've kind of put it on the side and messed it around a little bit to make Mythic Quest work. I think can keep going and working in that way too. Couple of things that are in the first season that I just watched the first seasons of. One was Shrinking, and one was Severance. And Shrinking has a wide range. It's both of those are coming back. Both of those, and neither one of those, like unlike Mythic Quest, those don't really have a like a directed at millennials type of thing necessarily, but they got kind of a wide age range of cast and characters and stories, and they're both workplace comedies essentially. Or well, Shrinking's a workplace comedy. Severance is a workplace sci-fi thriller, so not very comedic. But what's super cool about they're almost the same damn word, so I have to think about this. Severance is you know, Christopher Walken's in it, and that's like super, super like good. Like anytime you see him anymore, it's like, yes, we have been blessed by Christopher Walken's presence. And there's John Turturro and you know, Adam Scott and stuff like that too. um but it's you get to see some like really twisted weird shit that's like how awful the corporate world is now if continues to be left unchecked and turns into like these billionaires who think that their lives should be other people's lifestyles. That's exactly what this is. So it's really neat and twisty. It kind of draws things out on a little bit slowly, and it's really unnerving in the way that it's sort of like well, not sort of, it's exactly like a Wes Anderson movie that's set in hell. That's really the aesthetic of it. So and it's meant to be. It's meant to be that unnerving in that way, and it definitely feels like it's like, you know, it's under your skin. It's gross. So in that way, it's very, very awful. But there's definitely some sinister shit going on, and you know that there is, and you find out that there is. And I don't know what they're really going to have in store for the second season, but it's obviously going to go along with what's going along. But it's not just that the workplace is weird, because the whole concept of the show is the severance process is where you have like mentally had a procedure done to your brain where you have agreed to separate your life, your outside life with the work life, so that there's a version of you that never stops working, because every time that you go there you're kind of activated, so you don't know what happens on the outside, and you know, vice versa. So they're always speculating both ways about who am I, what am I doing there, or who am I on the outside, do I have a family, what is my life like. But it's also, again, like with these corporations take over, like the main character, Adam Scott's character, he lives in a housing development made by this company that they work for. So it's like basically like if Amazon had its own housing and shit, which I'm sure is on the horizon. And it's just like these unchecked ideals of what's going on and what could happen and what's probably going to happen. It's like the worst version of capitalism that you can imagine. So you see them inside and outside. So it's almost like everybody gets to play two characters, and it's kind of neat in that way. Fascinating, a little bit of a slow burn, but fascinating. There is some stuff that I wish they kind of like, you know, and then there's some stuff that's so weird. It's like it's too weird. Like pretty much Patricia Arquette's entire character. It's not like she's a good actor, but it's like you kind of she's super obsessed with the people of the company, like how it got made and stuff, but almost to the point where like I don't know. It almost didn't seem believable. I guess I don't know. That was my take on it. I liked it. I definitely want to see what's going on with it. But I want some of that stuff answered, But there are things about it I didn't like too. I just would have liked it to go a little bit faster. Would have been nice. Now Shrinking, that's got Harrison Ford in it and Jason Segel, and it's got a really good vibe too. It's a very modern show, and it's multi-generational workplace thing. They're psychologists, hence the shrink thing. And Jason Segel plays a guy who has a daughter, and his wife and his daughter's mother dies unexpectedly in a car crash before the show starts, and they're about a year into their grieving process, and he's trying to also be a psychologist to other people. So it's sort of this guy's got to get his shit together. His daughter's trying to work through her problems. He's trying to deal with other people, and it also has that nice for nice sake vibe, which is good. But it's a totally different type of a thing than Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is its own thing. I'm not sure that could really be replicated. It's sort of a time capsule moment of its own type of a thing there. But both of those shows are going to get second seasons, and Shrinking is very funny. Again, I really like the way the kind of the open door way that people talk to each other in it. It's got graphic language in it, and that's the kind of stuff that I find funny. Because I don't necessarily want everything to be, I don't like network TV. Like I don't need everything sanitized for me. I like that if I don't like it, I don't watch it. And that should be the only thing that anybody has to deal with. Makes a little more sense with things that are like playing on TV and you can't really stop it. Like, okay, you might see or hear something you don't want to, but I like adult-oriented programming. And I don't mean that like young people or teenagers couldn't watch this shit. It's no big deal. But just I know that it's like here's a program that doesn't sanitize what they're talking about, but goes there, and so a lot of these all do that, whether it's, violent oriented, whether it's language, whether it's comedy. I wouldn't say it's like pushing the envelope. I just say it's like tearing the walls of censorship down that have needed to be done for so long. So I'm really, really glad to be able to see stuff that feels more realistic and less stupid, because they weren't allowed to say this stupid word or that word, or you can't show this maiming, but you can show this maiming. So standards and practices is a horse shit. Either way, both of those are really good. I just started Hello Tomorrow, which is kind of really my kind of a thing, because I love that atomic future kind of idea, like the future from different eras, like how they imagine the future would be based on the different styles of things. A few years ago, a mini series on Netflix came out that was actually good, called Maniac, and had Jonah Hill and Emma Stone in it, and it was like basically like a future. It wasn't too different from Severance actually, and it kind of had a similarity though. But they kind of imagined the future from like an '80s future, like how the '80s would say the future was like. And Hello Tomorrow has a future of like the atomic age, what the '50s would imagine the future to be like. And I'm not far enough into it to really know exactly what's going on. I'm not sure if it's going to get renewed. But I've enjoyed it so far. The aesthetic is great. Absolutely loving the aesthetic on that one. A couple other ones that I've started are Silo, Foundation, and For All Mankind. Silo, it's been a little compelling, but I'm not far enough into it to be able to really say anything about it. So we'll touch back on that one another time. Foundation is getting rave reviews, getting renewed. People are really, really loving it. And so far, I fucking hated it. I really think it's one of these things that has multiple problems, where they throw stuff at you from the moment you get into the show, but you haven't had a chance to connect with the world or the people. And this does not work. This is not a winning formula in sci-fi. You have to give me something to ground myself with, and I think all audiences feel like that. Don't just throw me into space and be like, you're supposed to care. And then in 5 episodes, you'll know why. stupid. So I know it's based off of Isaac Asimov stuff, and which incidentally there's Mythic Quest episodes that have to do with that as well. But I mean, I watched The Expanse. I did not like it. It was a rage watch, but I watched it all the way through because eventually you get so far into it, you're like, well, fine, I'll just keep going with it. So I watched all of The Expanse, and didn't like it, and it wasn't worth it. But which again was a super popular book series when it came out. I didn't like anything about it, but this has that same vibe for me. It's like I keep trying to get into it because people are so into it, but it's like, first of all, it's unnecessarily complicated. It throws you into scenarios where you don't care about anybody yet because you don't know them, and I don't want to sit around and be like, okay, well, in 5 episodes I'm going to give a shit, and because I still don't, because I'm mad at that point that I had to watch this long to find out what was going on in the first 5 minutes of the show. The worlds are too complicated. The story isn't really going anywhere. I'm about halfway through the first season, I guess. Story isn't really going anywhere. The costumes and settings fucking suck. I love Lee Pace, just like everybody does, right? And they're not featuring him enough. The concept, I think, is just like too high level. It's about math. It's about like super math. No thank you. So nothing's happening. It's sort of like this like really watered down Game of Thrones in space. And I didn't do Game of Thrones. I thought that shit was dumb and I didn't like it. So I didn't do Game of Thrones. I don't do House of Dragons. But because that was all just ripped off of like shitty rip off of Lord of the Rings anyways. So and Foundation has the same problems that the Rings of Power did, and does, which is there's nothing there. There's no there. Everything that Rings of Power is way worse because they spent $1 billion fucking dollars on that series, $1 billion, and the CG sucks, the casting sucks, the story sucks. Like, I never fall asleep watching stuff, but I would be like, every time one of those episodes come on, it was just like an absolute trigger to fucking pass out. And first and foremost, the costumes and the settings of in Rings of Power also really fucking suck. You cannot watch the original movies or even the Hobbit movies and then go and watch Rings of Power and think that they're even anywhere in the same league. So how did a company spend $1 billion, like more than all of the movies together with a budget, and come up with something that's so dog shit that it isn't even in the same universe as the other movies? So at least there's more Lord of the Rings content coming out though in the future. So I see that the clock is ticking and I've barely even gotten out of the Apple TV, and I have like a whole page of other stuff to get to. So clearly this is going to have to roll over into another episode. Maybe back to back. I don't know. We'll figure it out. So we'll work on this together. So I'm rage watching Foundation, but I don't like it. It's not like I don't understand it. I just think it's needlessly complicated and there's no there. That's the problem I have with it. There's nothing to gravitate towards because the people aren't likable. Characters aren't likable. Their societies are vague. You know, it's like you get dropped, you know, and there is something to be like said about the kind of like, what was it? Life on Mars did this. Life on Mars did this, where you were dropped into a situation where you kind of had to put the clues together and figure shit out. So there is something to be said about shows that do that, but you have to be able to tell a good story and a compelling story, and not just, you know, shove them through a door and be like, there you go, there it is. Care. That's what Foundation is like. There's nothing foundational about it. There's nothing to gravitate towards. There's nobody to like. The story is really lame. It's got, you know, Jared Harris and Lee Pace in it, and that Lee Pace is like the only reason I watched it, right? Like that's it. Like if he wasn't in this, I would have stopped watching this after episode 2. But I'm holding on for Lee Pace, and it's just not there. It's just not there. So I don't really know why people are raving about this so much, or it's getting so much critical acclaim. Someone said same. I don't know why it's getting so much critical acclaim because it's just not. There's nothing there. There's no there. and you're dropped into a bunch of stuff that they're not answering, or they answer way later, and it's like, oh, I'm supposed to give a shit at this point. And there's like 3 different major storylines that don't really seem to connect, at least not yet. So I'm working my way through that. Another one that I'm really not liking at all, and I've kind of given up on, and I keep kind of going back to it, is For All Mankind. I love space. I love like space exploration stuff, but this is just stupid. It's relitigating the space program from the point of view that the Russians got there first. Except that the whole vibe of the show is the Russians are doing super rad shit, but in America, all the characters in the American space program are crybaby chodes, but they're America, so you're supposed to want them to have it. And it's like, are you kidding me? Because like the first thing is, the whole thing is they got to the moon first, so everybody's boohooing. Oh, plus Werner Van Braun. Like, oh, okay, don't look into that shit at all, right? Like, he's like a major player in this. I'm like, I don't want to watch that. So, you know, first of all, it's like all the American astronaut characters fucking suck. It's like all boohoo. We didn't get there first, but you're, as the audience, supposed to be on our side. We're all shitbags, and we suck at our jobs. But the Russians are the douchebags. They're the guys you're not supposed to like. They took our moon from us, and it's like, all right. So then you go a little further, they get to the moon first, and then like they make contact with the moon first, and then like the next time you see that they did something first, like the first spacewalk on the moon, like the is also Russian, puts their visor up, and it's a woman, and it's like, oh yeah, that sucks so hard. I really wish America would have got there first. You know, it just makes no fucking sense. It makes no sense where it relitigates the history in a stupider way than it actually happened. You know, like it doesn't, you know, we're still supposed to be like, hoorah, America, even though they give, like the Russians are doing rad shit. Like where is my mind supposed to be on this? Because the American astronauts in the story and the NASA people in the story are stupid and lame crybabies not getting their way. And that, plus Werner Von Braun. So that's the whole thing. And I really hate it. So I really hate what they're doing. The other one, it's honorable mention, I will say, is called the Big Door Prize, which is Chris O'Dowd is the lead in that one. I'm not through all the way through the first season of that yet. It's a sci-fi comedy type of a thing. Neighbor, like a little kind of insular town, you know, a cutesy little town type of a thing. One day in their little general store, this machine shows up that you get in, and it's called the Morpho machine, and it promises to tell people their real life path, like their real destiny, what they're really put on earth to do. And everybody's all into this, and it gives you this little printout card, and it's changing people's lives, and it's changing their attitudes. And then finally you get to see the inside of the machine, and it asks for like their fingerprints and social security number. And it's like, what the fuck? So it hasn't really been explained yet what's going on. I haven't really, you know, finished that one yet either. I'm still going on with that one, but I've enjoyed what I've seen so far. And it's also got that irreverent, weird humor too. Like there was this moment where Chris O'Dowd is his wife's mother in the show. I don't know anybody's names yet, but he plays a teacher, and she is kind of like a maker of stuff. But her mom owns like a craft store, but is also the mayor of this little town. And she's real rude, and she won't self-absorbed and won't drop the idea. The mother won't drop the idea that she used to be a dancer, right? So they have this big event at one point where it's like an engagement party, I think, for her ex, and like the whole town is there, and she does this like bizarre erotic dance as like a gift to them for their engagement, and everybody's just standing there watching it. So it's got like this really weird, I like irreverent humor too, so it's got this like weirdly weird vibe. I don't yet know what's going on with the whole Morpho machine thing. And it's, I think it wants to be a little Twin Peaksy. You can see that it wants to be, but it's not like trying super hard to get there. It is comedy based, so that was kind of fun. I really didn't expect that it would take an entire hour just to go through Apple TV stuff, because like I said, I have like a ton of other things, but it's looking like this is going to have to roll into another episode, which is probably fine. But because I do have some stuff on here that really sucks. I want to talk about why it sucks, but I didn't really get to. But I think the moral of the story here is that Apple TV is definitely worth it. Oh yeah, somebody just reminded me. I have another one that I left off the list. All right, we'll just talk. Fuck it. We're just gonna talk about Apple TV, and we'll get to the other stuff later. Uh, was this new series Monarch: Legacy of Monsters, and that was sort of the reason that like I was like interested in seeing what was going on with Apple TV in the first place, because I had heard that Kurt Russell and his son Wyatt Russell were talking about that they were in this new show, which is in the Godzilla universe, which I don't really give a shit about ordinarily. Specifically, like, it's not anything against like the sci-fi of it or anything like that. I don't watch the movies. I don't really care. I've seen a lot of the older movies, like the original, movies, but I don't really follow the Godzilla stuff. But this being something, I've always been a Kurt Russell fan. Wyatt's pretty cool too. But I'd never really heard of a father and son playing a role where they both played the same character at different stages in their life. So, and also there was a cameo by John Goodman, and so it's like, all right, this sounds good. I need to see more about this. So the first season, I will say there's not many like moment to it, right? It's not really like, you kind of have to have an awareness of Godzilla, first of all. Which isn't hard. Godzilla. That's it. Like from the movies. Like, you don't really have to like know very much. Godzilla shows up and tears shit up, and you wonder why, and why they were always trying to kill him and things like this. Why is the military always trying to kill Godzilla? You probably don't want to be there either. And so this kind of addresses the idea. This is more, I think, conceptual. It's less like, like if you're like looking at things like in terms of like gift sets, like gifts. Like, you can't really, like, take very many moments from this show like you could other shows and be like, oh, that was such a cool moment. It's really more about, like, all together, because they've got a cast of younger characters, which are kind of lukewarm. And it's really my only real interest in it is like Kurt and Wyatt playing the same character at different stages of his life. And I will not say that it was, like character-wise compelling, but it was interesting in the way that it's like, what is happening, what's going on, because they kind of established that there'd always been this sort of idea in the Godzilla movies that they lived underground. And there was that one movie, Pacific Rim, that kind of did that same thing. They're living under the earth somehow, inside the earth. But then this show postulates they kind of take the supernatural show, not description. But then when they go to purgatory, they take the idea that there is this purgatorical place in the middle between of like worlds, like we're talking about like levels of creation, levels of universe, where like there's the living human world, there's this purgatorical world, and then there's the world of the monsters, and then the monsters would use these like portals where they kind of voluntarily and involuntarily end up kind of sucked in and put into the human world. They get all mad and they tear shit up. But the humans had never really gone in the other direction. And so they kind of postulate that, like, they could go there and they could shut all the portals, right? It's really not that imaginative, like, original, but it's entertaining. Because you're interested in where it's going to go. And I think what makes it not very original is because it is based on other source material. But it's like, where is this going to go? It's sort of just, you're constantly just going to regurgitate Godzilla stuff that we've seen over and over again, which it does do. It's just not that it's not entertaining. It's entertaining enough. I mean, especially if you've never seen any Godzilla stuff before, or, the Mega Monster kaiju type stuff. If you've never seen any of that kind of stuff before, really, like, then I could see how it would be interesting. And then they put this new aspect onto it where they're like, oh, but it's, it's portals, and we're gonna close the portal, that kind of stuff, and there's like some time travel elements to it. So, the only thing that I didn't really care for was the younger cast, just because I don't know if it was like the casting so much as like the characters really, like, if you pull them out, you wouldn't miss them, that kind of a thing. It's supposed to be like a multi-generational thing where like older audiences are watching for Kurt, like millennial audiences are watching for Wyatt, youngest audiences like the Gen X or Gen Z characters are watching for these younger characters. Yeah, somebody's saying they're watching it for Kurt and Wyatt as well. They don't care what they do, but hearing them in interview talk about like, yeah, there's been a lot of father and son roles offered to us, but We never had heard one about playing the same character before. So it's really interesting to see how they line themselves. That's the highlight. That's the, don't bury the lead here. Like, that's the thing that makes it really interesting, is seeing how that they were able to align their mannerisms over a character so that they really are playing the same character. You really don't question that. They look very similar anyways. And but if you hear them talk side by side, they're a little bit, they do have a very similar way of talking, or a similar cadence, similar voices. But in this, they had to align that over a character, and talented actors, of course, could do that. But so they are the draw to the show. But everything else about it, if they were not in the show, it would be not worth watching. So I don't know that it's coming back. In and on a kind of a cliffhanger situation. So I assume it's probably going to come back. I think they probably want to do 2-3 seasons of this kind of a thing. But I hope to see it strengthen up a little bit. Oh, okay, my battery's going, and I guess that's good timing. I hope they strengthen it up a little bit. I did not intend to talk about Apple this whole time. If I go dead, I go goodbye early. But I did not intend to talk about Apple exclusively, but that really is where I've been putting most of my time. I did have just to show you, I had like a whole bunch more of stuff. So I will save that in, because I want to get into this a little bit more regular. This is sort of the idea of what I wanted to do with Million Movie Project anyway, was to get into the deep topics about movies and TV and stuff, and do reviews periodically. So I don't know if it'll be a part 2 right away, or if this will happen down the road. Because I might end up ultimately having some stuff to say about these shows that I'm watching currently. But I think if you take anything away from this, Netflix isn't worth it. Disney's not very much worth it. AMC Plus, don't pay any money for that. I don't have that at all. I just watch stuff off of it. Prime is not worth it. It used to be, but it isn't anymore. And really, just like, there's shitloads of stuff on Apple TV. I have noticed on the app that doesn't show everything it's got. So go onto its website, click the series tab, and you will see, and it only holds a few things. Like, other streamers, you can like add anything you want, as much as you want. This one only holds like about 6 things, from what I could tell. If that's the way it's worked for me, I don't know if that's everybody or whatever, or because it's in the trial period, don't know. Anyways, I've had the website pulled up so that I can like go and like investigate, read the synopsises, and pick new shows. So that's how I've been doing it, and I'm having a really good time watching these really cool, original, high quality programs. Even if I'm not liking them, I still might rage watch them over time, but there is stuff here that is really tremendously excellent compared to the drivel and, all these other streamers, and especially network television, which is, don't even waste your time as that goes. But yeah, I did not get to that was but a portion of what I had in store for this conversation. Even though I talked super fast, I guess I thought I would get through more than I did, but I did not. So coming up, I will have beginning of next month, top of next month. I will be here again for Meanwhile Back at the Ranch episode, which is again whatever I'm doing, my projects coming out, where you can find my stuff. I always put all of my social information in the descriptions of these videos, so you can follow me on my various socials. You can find my Redbubble that way. I am very close to making 1,000 all-time sales, so if you want to come over and buy some stickers or something cheap, I wouldn't mind. Again, it's Nicolette Abides. You can find the link in my description. As always, you can sub to me here and you'll get notifications, or just follow my socials. You can reach out to me on my socials. A thing we are doing on RBN, which I will talk about in my next Meanwhile Back at the Ranch episode, but just very quickly, we invite the audience to talk to us, send us comments, questions, their thoughts about the episodes. That's again more current event based. So not really TV movie stuff, but like current events. If you want to hear independent journalism based on current events, that's where we are on that. And you can find us through the RBN, Revolutionary Blackout Network Long Beach channel. You could sub to us there. We're called Social Contract, and we also take show ideas, like what topics you want to hear about. We've got, half a dozen episodes or more out already. We're back for the year. We're locking in, and we're on weekly Tuesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern, but of course you can always watch at your leisure when you are feeling like it. So if you like this, but you would like to hear me talk with another very competent and talented person about current events in the world and how to make things in life better, go hit us up. Go check us out. And you can reach out to us on our socials, and we like to hear from the audience. And you can live tweet with us and live chat with us. We always try to, when we're not getting too wrapped up in our conversations, we always try to hop up and, discuss what people are saying in the comments to us and that kind of a thing. So, and always you're welcome to talk to me here on my socials if there's something you want me to review or address or talk about. Within the kind of parameters of the things that these shows are about, which is my doings, meanwhile back at the ranch, and then Million Movie Project is movies TV. So I will catch up with you again very soon, and I will see you all out on the internet. So be safe, take care of each other, and wear masks. Do it. Don't get sick. You don't need colds or flus either. Just do it. Be nice and thoughtful about other people, and don't get sick on your own. Like, why do you want to? Don't. So don't. Just don't. Don't do it. Not asking very much of you. It's not. It's really not. It's not controversial. It's really not. But take care. Everybody be safe. Stay warm. Bye-bye.